Bun găsit, stimați utilizatori ai portalului de știri nordnews.md. Eu sunt Nicoleta Pânzaru și vă invit să urmăriți un nou interviu marca Nord News. De această dată vom discuta cu șeful oficiului ambasadei țărilor de jos în Republica Moldova, Floris Van Eijk. Vom discuta despre problemele prioritare în Republica Moldova, despre relațiile dintre Olanda și Republica Moldova, relațiile de colaborare de asemenea și despre reformele care se așteaptă mult implementate în societatea noastră, dar și despre statutul oficial de țară candidată la Republicii Moldova la Uniunea Europeană. Țin să menționăm că acest interviu va fi difuzat în limba engleză. Mr. Ambassador, good afternoon and thank you for accepting our invitation for this interview.
With pleasure.
First of all, I would like to begin this interview with congratulations, because recently Republic of Moldova and Netherlands have celebrated 30 years of relationships full of diplomatic and very successful collaboration, and I would like to ask you, by your opinion, what are the most important projects that were implemented in Republic of Moldova with the support of Netherlands during this years?
Thank you very much. That's a great question. And indeed, the 10th of July, last Sunday, we celebrated 30 years of diplomatic relations, meaning that Moldova, a young country, when it got its independence in 1991, a few months later, we established officially diplomatic relations. I would like to emphasize that those relations have grown stronger and stronger over the years. And I would say that since last year, they are actually stronger than ever. We opened our diplomatic representation in Moldova now about 5 years ago. And we have grown as an office, our staff has grown, but also we have strengthened our cooperation. Previously, we were focusing mostly on promoting human rights and strengthening the good governance in the country, alongside with projects for young people and consular affairs. But recently, the government has asked us to do more and to work together on the justice sector reform, energy security, and cyber security. And when our Prime Minister visited here on the 2nd of February, he agreed with President Sandu that we will work together on these issues.
I heard also that through all the projects implemented here by the support of Netherlands, also the teenagers and students from Republic of Moldova had the opportunity to travel and do internships in Netherlands. I would like here to ask you what are the most important advantages for them in this context.
Well, I think it is very important that young people develop themselves, that they have an open mind, that they are open to what's happening in Europe and in the world. And we have seen that a lot of young people from the Republic of Moldova choose the Netherlands to study and sometimes to work. And what we hope, of course, is that they bring back the experience that they get in the Netherlands as students, as young professionals, back to Moldova. Now this is not always happening. A lot of people who leave the country do not come back in the immediate future, and this is something that we would like to work on together with the Moldovan government. One of the initiatives that we took at the embassy office is a program that we call Moldova Brain Gain, and this is aimed at Moldovan students in the Netherlands who are doing the bachelor or master's degree in the Netherlands or have just completed their education, to give them the opportunity to do paid internship in Moldova, to give them the experience of working in their mother country and grow their experience as a young professional, grow their professional network in Moldova, and hopefully give them the perspective of coming back to their country.
All of these things that you enumerated before are very important in the case that we, Republic of Moldova, is officially the state candidate for European family. In this context, I would like here to ask you that in an interview given a year ago for our news portal nordnews.md, you told that this process of integration of our country into European family would be very long. Recently, on 23 of June, our country has officially obtained the status of officially state candidate for European family. Did you manage that did you thought ever that this statue would be obtained in this very short period of time? And by your opinion, who should we thank for obtaining this status?
That's another great question. No, last year I think nobody had foreseen that Moldova would get the candidate status for the EU in 2022, not even me, obviously. And let's be very honest about it. Yeah. The candidacy of Moldova has a lot to do with the terrible war of aggression that Russia is waging against Ukraine. This caused Ukraine to formally apply for the EU membership, and when Ukraine applied, the other two countries of the associated trio, Georgia and Moldova, also applied. Yeah. That set in motion, of course, a process in Brussels where they said, okay, we are now going to evaluate this request to become candidate members. And the reports were made, and on the basis of the report, Ukraine and Moldova got the candidate status. This was a lot faster than we had previously foreseen, but it will still take a long time before Moldova will become a full member, because it has to fulfill all the Copenhagen criteria to make sure that it will get its society ready at the same level as the other EU member states. So that will still take time, but an important step has been taken. There is a very concrete perspective now to join the EU, which is no doubt the result of the hard work of this government, of the ambitious reform agenda that Maia Sandu and Natalia Gavrilica set out, and that we are supporting as international community.
If we talk about the Ukrainian war, which was committed by Russian invasion, as you may know that all of us know the fact that our country has hosted more than 200,000 of refugees from Ukraine, and I would like here to point out and to ask you the question if you think that the fact that our country hosted these refugees made a perfect image for the European Council, maybe European Parliament, who and give us the official status of country candidate.
Well, it certainly helps to give a positive image of Moldova, right? It's not an official criteria for joining the EU, but being kind to refugee and showing a big heart, of course, helps very much European leaders to value what is going on in Moldova. And it is not only the government which did a huge effort to accommodate the refugees, it's also the Moldovan people who opened their homes, who cooked for them, who provided them with phone cards so they could make calls. There was a lot of support.
Here I would like also to talk about the official statute of Republic of Moldova European integration. You said that Republic of Moldova made a solicitation for European family after Ukrainian. You know that there are a lot of rumors on social media that Republic of Moldova obtained this status for Ukrainian. How do you think? Is it correct?
No. The status is merited, and the status is based on Moldova being ready to become a candidate. Mm-hmm. Not yet ready to become a member, but ready to become a candidate member. That is purely based on the merits of, what has been implemented. Moldova has an association agreement with the EU for a long time and has already started to adjust its regulation to EU regulation. And not only because it wants to become a member, but also because it's in the interest of Moldova. Thanks to the harmonization of Moldovan laws with European regulation, it has been much easier to export agricultural products to the EU. And the EU is now the largest export market for Moldovan products. This is only possible because Moldova already started, long time ago, to adjust its regulation to the European regulation.
When I was doing the questions for this interview, I found out the fact that Netherlands, even if it's not a very big country, it has, or maybe it become by years, the most important and a very giant agriculture because of the new technologies implemented in this system. You all know that Republic of Moldova also people from here are based on agriculture and on this system. What do you think, why nowadays government do not have the possibility to manage and to work on this system, which is the most important system for Republic of Moldova, in order to make the same results which have Netherlands in the agriculture system?
It's a difficult question because the Netherlands and Moldova, yes, they are both small countries, but in other aspects they are difficult to compare. They are different, right? For the Dutch agriculture, what is very scarce and very expensive is labor, and what is very easy to get is credits. In Moldova, it's the other way around. There is a lot of people who are able to work in agriculture, in the agricultural sector, and their salaries are low. And at the same time, it is more difficult to get credits for large investments in the agricultural sector. Having said that, I am sure that Moldova, with new technologies, can increase its agricultural output dramatically, become much more productive. And if farmers find the appropriate technologies, maybe not the technologies we are using in the Netherlands, but other technologies, to do greenhouse growing, for example, to find better ways of organic farming with a higher output, then I am sure that a lot of farmers can be lifted out of poverty and can get much higher family incomes. What is lacking here, I think, is training for those farmers to be able to know what technology they need to make a good business plan. And what is also sometimes lacking is investments, the financing of those efforts, and sometimes also the coordination between farmers in sector organizations. But again, we have seen very positive examples here. For example, Moldova Fruct is the sector organization of fruit producers. They have received a lot of support from the Netherlands to improve the quality of the production of stone fruits. Peaches, for example, apricots, etc. Improve the quality of the production and find markets in the EU to export those products. This is hugely successful. And all the farmers that participated in this project of Moldova Fruct, they can tell you that they have dramatically increased their income by professionalizing their production and exporting to the EU, finding the right markets for their products.
But I have to say that I have been on field and I talked with the farmers. They told me that nowadays they confront themselves with the most important economical problems since the 30 years of independence, you know? Yeah. Maybe you, I don't know, you don't have to tell concrete period of time, but maybe during what years Moldova can implement the same technologies, maybe not the same as in Netherlands, but maybe 10% of technologies in order to make our agriculture better.
We can start investing in this now. We have to start investing in this now. It is no secret that the food products are more expensive than ever before. And this is because the inputs for agriculture are more expensive, the diesel is more expensive, the fertilizers are more expensive, the seeds are more expensive, everything is more expensive. And unfortunately, this has to do with the economic crisis that is a direct result of the Russian war of aggression in Ukraine. So this is the reason, and it's not only Moldova that is dealing with it, Romania is dealing with it, Hungary is dealing with it, Slovakia, Poland, Netherlands. But a poor country like Moldova suffers the consequences much more. So I know that there is a tendency sometimes to blame the government for everything that goes wrong, but this is something that happens everywhere, regardless of the government. Now, the question is, of course, what can the government do to alleviate the suffering of the people? And that is, of course, a political question. How do you support the people who are the poorest, who are the most affected? Well, this is sometimes through subsidies, and this is happening. Like in the case of the Netherlands, some people got some tax breaks, for example, on the gas, to reduce a little bit the gas bill. Same thing is happening here, right, for the households. But it is not enough. It will never, completely remove the consequences of the economic crisis. But what needs to happen is to make investments now. And I think when the food prices are going up, there is an incentive to become a more efficient producer. There is also, with a high energy price, for example, an incentive to invest in alternative energy, in renewables, in solar, in wind. Previously, wind farms, solar farms were not so attractive in Moldova because the energy price was very low. It was actually subsidized in a way. But now that the energy prices are so high, we at the embassy, for example, get a lot of interest from companies from the Netherlands who say, we are interested to build a wind park, or we are interested to develop a solar farm. Because now, with the energy prices being the way they are, it becomes interesting to invest here. Yeah. So this is the positive side of the high prices. It will foster investments, it will foster innovation. But of course, it will take time for this to lead to results, and in the short run those high prices are very difficult for the common people, and I am fully aware of that, and I hope that the government finds a way to compensate the poorest people.
I found out also the fact that in Netherlands all the trains have renewable energy, is it right? And this is electricity. This is the first country which which obtained these results. Do you think in the Republic of Moldova is going to be possible this fact in years, maybe after 20-30 years of European investments in here, exclusively in the Netherlands, or no?
I think this depends on the decisions that are being taken, and I haven't seen how viable it is to do an electrification of the railroad network. I'm not an expert on that, but it's true that in the Netherlands 100% of the trains run on electricity. We do not have diesel trains.
This is very good. This sounds very good, actually.
And it is, because it is cleaner. And when you use electricity instead of diesel, you can use electricity that comes from wind or solar. So it's 100% clean. So I think it is possible for Moldova to do that. But you would have to weigh, of course, the investments against other investments you can make.
The most important reform, as you mentioned before, is corruption, is justice system. Yes. Our political class began to bring order in Moldova justice system. Here we talk about the preventive process, and we found out the fact that Dutchman Herman von Hebel, if I'm not mistaken, is the chairman of a preventive commission in the Republic of Moldova. This is a very important fact, because our Moldovan authorities could make an internship between justice system from Netherlands and the Republic of Moldova. But my question in this context is, if this preventive process, which is firstly happened in Republic of Moldova, is it so possible to happen and to give concrete results in such corrupt country as Republic of Moldova?
That's what I certainly hope. I mean, to be clear, and also for the viewers to know, the pre-vetting is actually a screening of all the candidates for the vacant positions in the Supreme Council of the Magistrates and the Supreme Council of Prosecutors. It's very important that the people who will be in those two organs are completely clean, that their finances and assets have been checked, that they are not corrupt, that they haven't been involved in any funny cases in the past, so that we can trust those two bodies again. Why is this important? Because the Supreme Councils are involved in nominating new judges and prosecutors and in firing the ones that are found to be corrupt. So this is where you start. So that is why we call it a pre-vetting. It is before the rest. We have indeed a Dutch judge, Herman van Hebel, who was elected by the Moldovan parliament to chair this commission, together with 2 other international judges and 3 local Moldovan members. So it's 6. Half of them international, half of them Moldovan. Why is this important? It's important to have the Moldovans because it's a Moldovan process and they know the system. But it's also important to have the international ears and eyes. Why? Because they have international experience in similar exercises elsewhere, and 2, they have no interest whatsoever inside Moldova. They are definitely not involved in any Moldovan schemes.
If you talk about the elements that Embassy of Netherlands supports in the Republic of Moldova, I heard, and I know that Embassy supports also the independence of press. How do you think, is it national Moldovan press very independent in order to face all the democratic values?
The short answer is no, not all press. There is a problem with concentration of media ownership. And in some cases, you can see that the media owners influence the content of what is being produced. So unfortunately, it is a minority of Moldovan media that are truly independent and producing high quality news. And unfortunately, the media market in Moldova is very small. Yeah. So many media cannot survive on the income they get from subscriptions or from advertisement. And especially the smaller ones, the independent ones, find it very difficult to survive in that environment. And that is why they need the support of donors to be able to operate. And I want to be very clear about that. As donors, we have no interest in influencing the editorial policy of those media. But we do realize that it is important that they continue to exist, that they do not disappear, so that we have only media that are controlled by businessmen. That would be a very bad situation. Yeah. So we support that.
I will also want to ask you about what is your opinion that a state, I talk about the Republic of Moldova, which has the official candidate for European family, has on its territory propaganda channels and TV stations, several just. Do you think that they should disappear if we would like to join the European Union?
It is a difficult discussion. I'm the first to admit this. I mean, closing down news station, having some sort of censorship is not a very a good point of departure. You would prefer not to do it. You would prefer all the media to be able to publish what they want, and you would also hope that they would take the responsibility of reporting in an independent way, doing the due diligence, etc., according to all the ethical requirements of journalism. But the practice is that is not always happening. The practice is that some media are being abused, are being manipulated, for example, by pro-Russian forces to spread a pro-war narrative in Moldova. And if this is, putting the security of the state in danger, I understand that the secret service has to take measures, and the ultimate measure is of course to close down a TV station, and that has happened. And I don't think it is something that we should be glad about. I mean, it's a pity that it is necessary.
I also would like to talk about the subject of human rights, because I know that embassy supports human rights, but in addition to that, the embassy of Netherlands supports the rights of LGBT community in the Republic of Moldova, and I observed you present at several events which happen in our country about this community, and also I have seen you on the parade of LGBT, which by year cannot happen without any scandal, unfortunately, in our country. But I would like you to know your opinion about if in years our country, people from our country have changed perceptions about this community and other minority, maybe nationalities in our country. How do you think? How did you observe this presence of phenomena in our society?
No, this is exactly why I go to these events, why I participate in the Solidarity March, in solidarity with the LGBTIQ+ community, because I believe it is important that LGBTIQ+ people become more visible, so that common Moldovans can see that they are not a threat, that they're actually just normal people who just happen to fall in love with somebody of their own gender, or who discover that the body that they got when they were born is not the body that they feel comfortable with, in the case of transgenders. And that this is perfectly okay. This is something that happens in all societies. And of course it is the right of every Moldovan not to like that, but they should at least respect those people. And this is very important. And I think the best way to respect those people is to get to know them. And there are many more than Moldovans realize. Moldovans who say hateful things about LGBTIQ+ people may discover that actually they have co-workers, they have classmates, they have neighbors who are part of that community. And they would probably not say those hateful things in their face if they knew that they were part of the community.
Yes.
And if they get to know them better, they may even start to like them because they are also good people, just like people who are heterosexual. You understand? So I think it is important that Moldovans see, like happened in my country, that LGBTIQ plus people are not a threat. They are part of society, they have the same rights as you and me, and yeah, they can also contribute to building this beautiful country. They're part of it.
But you come from Netherlands, where majority of people, maybe more than majority of people, accept the community of LGBT. Do you think that buyers in Moldova, Republic of Moldova, which is all we know, that which is ex-Sovietic country, our country can maybe during the years accept this community?
It will change, it will change. I have mentioned in previous interviews the TikTok generation, let's say the people under 25. And when I talk to people from the TikTok generation, they assure me that for them already it is much more normal to be LGBTIQ+, to be part of that community. And of course, they consume a lot of information from different countries, maybe some famous singers or fashion models from Western Europe, from North America, from South America, from different parts of the country, even from Russia, to be honest. And they are openly gay or lesbian or transgender. And you know, being exposed to, you know, these different cultures makes them realize that actually this is something very normal. So it is slowly changing, and for young people I hope that it will be a little bit easier to be themselves, to be open about their sexuality than it has been for previous generations.
For the final of the interview, I would like to point out very important problems also in our country, and I would like to ask you about the inflation, which is maybe the biggest priority and problem in our society in Republic of Moldova. Well, today's statistics shows that it gained till 31.83%, and I also found out that in the Netherlands, if I'm not mistaken, the inflation is 8.8% according to the latest CBC statistics. Do you think that other government can implement Dutch inflationary policies in order to ameliorate the process of inflation in our country?
Well, I think it is already doing that, but let me first stress, why is the inflation so much higher in Moldova than in the Netherlands? It's for two reasons, I believe. First, because Moldova is much more directly affected by the war in Ukraine than we are. A lot of the food products that used to come from Ukraine, I believe it was up to half of the food products that were imported came from Ukraine, now have to come from Romania or from elsewhere, where the products are much more expensive than in Ukraine. So that is one factor. And the other factor is that Moldovans spend a lot more, a higher percentage of their income on energy and food. And energy and food are the two categories that have increased in price most. In the Netherlands, the percentage that people spend on food and on energy is much lower than in Moldova. So this is sort of the explanation for this difference. But we also suffer the same increases for food and the same increases for energy in the Netherlands. Now, what has our government done? They have taken some tax measures to reduce the prices of energy, so that they cut the VAT that we have to pay on gas, for example. They did this on the 1st of July. And they have given an energy bonus to the poorest families to help them pay for the high gas and electricity bills. And this is not much different from the subsidies that the Moldovan government is giving to the poorest families to sort of help mitigate the high bills for energy. It's not going to solve the whole problem, but without these measures of the government, inflation would have been much higher and the financial situation of the people even more difficult.
The current government faces several national crises, and on 11th of July it gained a year by parliamentary elections in our country. People say that they are very dispirited by and have a very bad attitude by the central authorities. And do you think that our government, our central authorities have to implement some maybe important Dutch inflationary Dutch communication skills in order to make the relationship between Moldovan citizens and government and politicians to be better, maybe how it's in Netherlands?
I guess it is a good suggestion. I'm not saying that our authorities are always communicating perfectly, but I do realize that it is important that the Moldovan government explains better what is going on, that this high inflation, this economic crisis is not their making, that this is because of the war in Ukraine. And I think it is also important for the government to manage a little bit the high expectations. When this government was voted in with a strong mandate on its platform of anti-corruption and justice reform, people expected immediate results. And it was clear from the start that it will take a few years for the first results to be seen. And I think that people just have to be a little bit patient. And there are good results. The pre-vetting is now underway. This is the first serious efforts to really clean the justice sector from the corruption, which is stifling the country. That is very good result. In the state-owned enterprises, they are putting the house in order. There are some achievements there. And I think that the government should start communicating more, explaining more what they are doing, but also explaining the dilemmas and why it is so difficult to, undo 30 years of large-scale corruption, clientelism, where a lot of politicians, not all of them, but a lot of them were acting in their own private interest and not in the interest of the population.
So in conclusion, should they be more communicative to
Absolutely.
people? Of course.
That would be my recommendation, but it's up to them.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador, for this constructive dialogue, for this very nice interview, and I wish you success in all the Netherlands activities here in Republic of Moldova. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and it was a pleasure.
Thank you. Stimați utilizatori ai portalului de știri nordnews.md, vă mulțumim că ați fost alături de noi și de această dată. Ne întâlnim în scurt timp la un nou interviu marca Nord News. Până atunci, vă doresc pace!